Welcome to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. This is not your typical financial radio show. As a licensed CPA, insurance agent, and investment advisory representative, Chris coaches his clients on a holistic view of financial well-being with an objective of providing a complete financial strategy to fund life's goals. Chris is here to guide you down the path to the financial serenity you deserve. Now, here's Chris Cooper.
All right, folks, good morning. So this is a very special day for Serenity Wealth Now Radio. This is actually our 1-year anniversary of airing on News Talk. And here, I think I have a button for that. I'm no producer, but look at that. That's official right there. Yeah, that's official. So in studio with me to help me celebrate, we've got News Talk STL's own, very own Jeff Allen joining us in studio. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good. I don't get the crowd?
No, yeah. Let's applause you. I'll applause you too. Yeah, I'm getting used to these buckets here. You guys, you have talent on here. I could give you the crickets.
Oh, great.
We'll see how the conversation goes.
Keep that one handy.
Oh, man. So I love working with News Talk STL. So when I'm sitting here thinking, hey, what can I do to enjoy and have a little bit of fun on my 1-year anniversary of this show? I thought, you know what? I need to get some folks with News Talk in here. So
how could it possibly be a year?
I know.
It seem like
because we're old.
I think so. In fact, we were out shopping yesterday with my grandkids. They're 8 and 5. And it came up something about summer and when you go back to school in August. I'm thinking, and that's, going to be here really quick.
Really quick.
Oh my gosh, but that's at the end of summer. That's so far away. Like, no.
Yeah, and I still remember, back in the day when I felt like summer vacations lasted forever.
And it was forever between Christmases. Now it's like Christmas is going to be here again.
Oh, it's crazy. And then February slows down to like a halt because other than Super Bowl, there's nothing.
That is true.
It's the weirdest thing.
Yep.
So Stacy has to get out. Like if we don't find a way to get her out of the state or hopefully the country in her mind, she loses her mind.
Ooh.
So that's easy for me to get a vacation in that time frame.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, happy life. Happy wife, happy life, right? Yeah.
There you go.
So Jeff, I love being on news. So you guys have taught me a lot about how to have a fun time on the radio as well. So I really appreciate the education that you bring to the table as well. Great. I think for those that are interested, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm kind of like a sponge in this because this is not what I do. I provide financial guidance.
Well, but you're pretty good at it. A year down the road.
Well, it's fun. I've some of the statistics are crazy. They do not last, is what I've understood. So must be doing something right.
There you go.
So it's been fun. I've enjoyed every minute of it, getting to know a lot of businesses and just talking about what is important to people because it's not really about, and you and I talk a lot about this off air, it's not about the financial side of things. Sure, that's important. And that's a lot of what I do. But before I talk about finances, I have to talk about people's lives, what makes them tick, what are your goals, what are your concerns? And, those are much more interesting conversations to have with people.
Yeah. And it's like that in any business.
It really is.
We're talking to an advertiser or you're a financial guy. If I come in and go, here's this advertising package is going to work for you. Oh, hi. Would you like to know my name first?
No kidding.
It's like, it's not, one size fits all. You got to figure out what the goals are. You got to figure out, do I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 40 or I'll be okay if I wait till I'm 50.
Sure.
Right?
There's nothing wrong with those it's a much more interesting conversation.
Yes.
So, and speaking of interesting conversations, I think you guys get to have a lot of them at News Talk.
We do.
So let's talk back. Let's go back a little bit. What made you decide to start up? Like how do you wake up and go, hey, you know what? I want to start a radio station.
I asked myself that every day. No. Actually, this is one of those things, be careful what you say, because for years I thought, okay, there's two things I know about radio.
Yeah.
I will never play country music on the radio.
Okay.
Which I did for 6 years and ran one and absolutely loved it. And 2, I will never own a radio station. These people are crazy.
Yeah.
And I have done both.
So you're crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And love it. And love it. You know, as we say all the time, the high achievers that are on the air that do really well, that make them so good on the air.
Yeah.
Can be a little challenging off the air, you know, but that's how you want it.
Part of it is, I guess, managing talent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Talent coaching and seeing the it factor.
Sure.
You know, about, I say all the time, about 70% of what we do, I can teach to just about anybody.
Yeah.
It's the other 30%, either you can do it or you can't.
Right.
You know,
right.
There, somebody who is good at communicating, it's about, you can give them and someone else the exact same story, but the guy who has the person that has the 30% is going to make it exciting and entertaining. And the other person is going to make you go,
yeah, we'll get the crickets going, right?
Oh, yes, exactly.
That's what Ken would do. I need my Ken Williams here to help me do those kind of things. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. And one of the things, and it is a learning curve too. One of the things I look back and I won't even listen to some of my older radio episodes because there's a growth that takes place.
Yes.
And there's a comfort factor. And when you first start, I was doing presentations. I'm great, and I say I'm great, but you know, it's all relative.
Right.
You know, I do a lot of communication with people, you know, in one-on-one context, family meetings, but also in front of stages. And I was like, okay, I can figure this out on radio.
Right.
But when there's no one looking at you, it's a little bit different feel.
It's a little bit different, and there is a difference between talking at people and talking to people.
Sure.
You know, and we talk about this all the time at the radio station with Vic and everybody else, is we try not to do interviews. We try to do conversations.
Right.
Because there's a huge difference. I don't know how many times, way too many to imagine, that I've heard interviews or been part of an interview where they have a list of questions.
Yeah.
Right. That's an interview.
Yeah.
And you answer something like, and that other than the guy I killed, it's been a pretty good life. And they go, okay, so the next question, and the audience is like, he said he killed the guy. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know,
we got to figure this one out.
That's a conversation.
Right.
They're two totally different things.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, you do on this show, is you have conversations, and then all of a sudden it's becoming entertaining.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and if you think about what I do, that's what I do for a living, right? I have conversations, and then I go back behind the scenes and I solve the financial concerns to meet those objectives. And, you know, that I think is one of the things that I took your advice on, is how do you do this? Well, you have a good, solid conversation, and it's no different.
That's it.
When you're talking on the radio. And that's why I like to bring in different guests and have a conversation. And I tell people, ignore the camera. It's okay. It's just right there, checking out our conversation. But we want to make sure it's just it is a casual conversation. I've seen some people with a list of preparation. I'm going, okay, well, look at that. And then we're going to get to maybe one or two of those points and see where this goes. Yeah. And that's okay. But it's a way better discussion when it is really just that casual. So,
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because you didn't bring notes today, did you?
I brought no notes.
Oh, good. All right.
I am so unprepared.
We better figure this out.
Gosh, I did no show prep.
All right. So when you, obviously it wasn't in your career objectives to own a radio station.
It was not.
What challenged? What changed? What made you decide, hey, I'm going to do this because it just makes sense?
The industry changed.
Yeah.
So for years and decades, I was one of the corporate radio programmers, you know, with the iHearts and the Odysseys and, you know, any other big conglomerate. I was always either on air or programming and running for the corporate guy. And the game changed to where all of a sudden, just in the last, you know, decade, instead of the corporate radio coming to me and going, how can we help? We were blessed with, for years, the last 18 years I did corporate radio with a company out of Indianapolis,
Okay.
MS. And when they would come in, they'd go, "How can we help you be successful?"
Sure.
Great.
So providing resources, providing guidance, providing thoughts on how they can help make sure you have what you need to drive a successful station for your community.
With the caveat, your ball, your bat, your butt.
Right.
You know, you better be, we're going to support you, but if you're wrong, we're going to bring it up.
Yeah.
You know, so you try not to be wrong. Well, now fast forward to the station was sold. And for 2 years, I worked under, it was Entercom, then segued to Odyssey. And they were helping me a lot out of Philadelphia. And I'm like, but here in St. Louis, you don't, excuse me, this is how we do it. And then I'm like, this isn't exactly fun anymore.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it changes the perception and the brand and things that we had built. And having done music and been programming spoken word radio now for 25 years, you know, you got to be local and you got to be connected with the community and you got to be entertaining.
Right.
If it's not entertaining first, who cares about the other stuff? Nobody's there to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it got into a situation where when I stepped away from that, it was like, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
You know, this is the science of radio, and there is clearly a science of radio. Like there's a science of what you do, right? But then there's also the artistic part, which is like, well, the stats say this, but I'm telling you, it seems like, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's the feel aspect.
Exactly. And that was all gone. So
and this was what, 5-6-ish?
No, this would have been 2019. Okay. I guess.
So about 6-ish years.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
This is our time flies moment again.
Boy, you're not kidding. So when I stepped away, opened my consultancy that I was kind of doing anyway.
Yeah.
And opened Jeff Allen Media. And put a group of stations on in Springfield. I do a lot of work with national talent, a lot of coaching of some names that you would know that I can't say. And then also doing consultancy around the country, worked with a group in Flagstaff and whatever. And the whole time, people in St. Louis kept saying, "You're going to do something, right?" And I'm like, I am doing something. Yeah, I'm a little slow. And I'm like, oh, wait, they mean here in town. Yeah. And then we had my business partner, Joe Rush, who we had done some stuff up in Flagstaff. And
you keep talking about Arizona. We're going to have to talk about how awesome Arizona is.
Exactly.
Just so you know.
Exactly. Although, who knew? I did not know that Flagstaff, beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
But also gets unbelievable amounts of snow.
It's a lot of elevation.
Yeah. Where literally the station was at the base of the mountain. Yeah. It was beautiful. There were 4 stations. Anyway, I digress. But
this is why you don't have a topic list to go through.
That's exactly right. See, we're having a conversation.
That's right.
Yes. So anyway, and so we saw an opportunity here in town, having basically brought conservative talk radio to St. Louis back in 2000. Yeah. When we signed the old station on, we were the only game. There was only about 5 or 6 of us in the country doing conservative talk radio on FM, because they thought that's a waste of an FM signal.
Right. Because they're saying it's a niche of a niche, if you will. Right.
Exactly.
And so it's too focused.
Yeah. And it just happened to be the right time. I often say, you hear that sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. However, if you notice, people that are driven and working hard, and those are the people that get lucky.
Well, I think what happens there is, I think people that are good at what they do, and just good folks that are willing to take some risk, they put them in a position to be lucky.
Exactly.
They put themselves in that position.
That's it.
And sometimes, and that's no different than investing, really. You've got to put yourself in a position. You got to give yourself some comfort with a little bit of uncomfortableness, and do it balanced. But if you play to your strengths, you do the right things, and you stay educated about it, it can lead to success.
And you identify people who know what they're doing,
right,
and become a sponge, and just soak up everything you can. So in 2000, when we launched the radio station, a strange thing happened at about 2003.
Yeah.
Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, they all started doing national radio, because before it was Rush, and then it was okay. So it was a Rush. Now, all of a sudden, you have, at that time, which was the new generation of conservative. And so we were on the cutting edge of that, even to the point Fox News Radio didn't exist. It just didn't exist. So I was on the steering committee for Fox News Radio for about 5 years as we were launching that, what's the need and all that. So, and as they say, the rest is history. So ran that station with a real eye toward local.
Yeah.
We talk about national topics, but we talk about why do you care here locally?
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that whole thing developed. And then when I stepped away, it seemed like there was a void here in the St. Louis metro market anyway, that wasn't super serving that core anymore. Because where I came from was trying to broaden a little bit, then ultimately got bought by Soros, the evildoer, George Soros. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And we had...
It's pretty hard to run a conservative talk radio station that is run by Odyssey, which is owned by George Soros.
And you should see it when we talk about it with advertisers who don't think about it. I'm like, even if you love, urban, or you love what the talk station does or whatever, every dollar you spend is going to Soros.
Right.
So
I would also think it puts a slant on the way that you would talk about things from a corporate perspective.
I would think, from a corporate perspective, I would think so.
Yeah. You got out before you had to worry about it.
I have no knowledge of that. In full disclosure, one would suspect that.
You would, it's just natural.
Exactly.
And I mean, a lot of my career was in corporate world as well. And so when I did make that leap, I put myself in a position to maybe get lucky, but again, skill set, background, expertise, questions about, hey, why aren't you doing this? And long story short, you realize, man, I probably should have done this a long time ago.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's a lot of parallels between NewsTalkSTL and what we were doing back in 2000, in that I tell the staff all the time, and here we are 4 years down the road, you realize what we are doing here, they said we couldn't do. A local broadcaster going up against the big guys. And there's 4 or 5 of us again. There's that number.
I love it.
There's somebody in Atlanta doing the same thing. New York has a success story. We're the one in St. Louis. So there's 4, 5, 6 of us now. It's kind of like, so every 20 years, we're going to relive this.
Yeah.
So basically, we're doing it again. And I was blessed with about half of the staff, maybe even 2/3 of the staff, came with me from the old radio station.
Fantastic.
So the inside joke is, we didn't have to make all the mistakes we made for 18 years over at the other place. So we got to start in year 20 instead of year 1.
And learn, and then know what you want to do, and who's going to tell you to do something or not to.
That's exactly right.
That's refreshing.
It's
in
very
so many
refreshing.
ways.
Yeah.
So Larry Connors will always say, I've talked to him a few times, and he'll go, I knew I wanted to be part of NewsTalkSTL because I wanted to make sure I worked with Jeff Allen. And
that's very nice of him to say that. And
you've heard it live, so
I get to work with Larry Connors.
That's pretty cool. Not bad. Yeah. So it's pretty neat that you get to be a part of that. And what was the hardest thing that you just didn't even think about? Like, I would think, to me, I'm like, how do you buy airwaves?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to me, but you have to.
Absolutely. And the running joke for me at the radio station, I find myself numerous times a day going, I used to have people to do this. You realize this was I come from the content side and the air talent side. I did mornings for 20 years on the air, and then have been running the content when I discovered, I can hire people better than me to do this.
Sure.
And so all of that is my passion and what I enjoy doing. It's the business side and the sales side. Luckily, my business partner, Joe Rush, came from the sales side, but also is a good content guy. So there, I'm learning from him. He's learning from me, and it seems to work. The worst thing we could have done if both been good in sales or both been good at content.
Right.
Because we complement each other.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times, whether it's sales or engineering or whatever, I'm learning every day.
Yeah.
And at this point in my career, I've been doing this over 40 years, to be able to go into the station and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I'm learning, is pretty exciting. So
I think so. Still learning all the time. And that's
absolutely.
Whenever I talk to any business owner, that is always something that's like, man, I didn't think about it, but I always had somebody that cleaned up the office or that, bought the paper for the, for this fax machine to run or whatever, right? It's just amazing to me that now all of a sudden, I have to do that. Oh, no, what kind of paper do I want in this printer? I have to, all these choices.
Exactly.
You get to do all those things. Yeah. But you also have to, which is weird.
Exactly. I tell Joe all the time when we're having discussions about, whether it's actually running the business, which is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Running the business and the finances and sales and what I'm like, is this what's been going on all these years when I've been over here with the content, having fun?
Yeah, just talking into a microphone. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah,
right?
This is like adult stuff here. What is it?
Yeah. It's crazy. And at the end of the day, you have to do all this stuff has to happen.
That's it.
Just so that you can enjoy a great conversation on the radio.
But you're working for yourself, so it's a whole different thing.
It feels different, doesn't it?
It feels very different and a lot more rewarding.
Isn't it?
And a lot more exciting. I was always excited for accomplishments of my staff,
right?
But now they're almost like my kids now.
Yeah.
I mean, when they do well, it's so rewarding,
Are you calling Vic your kid right now, live on air? Like that's
Can you take care of that?
I need to
post?
edit that one.
Edit that out. Edit that out. It's so much more rewarding, and that's the unspoken piece. It doesn't matter how many people tell you that until it's kind of like grandkids, right?
Right.
Until you experience it, you're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
This is different.
That's cool.
It's cool, and it's been fun.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. No, and that's a very common theme. There's all the business owner conversations I have. It's community first. And then it's understanding how to bring that experience that you bring to the table, how to make it relevant for the community you serve.
Yep.
And then make sure you drive that purpose in. And it can be so much more rewarding, but you got to go all in and you got to be excited about it. And if you do those things, you'll wonder why you didn't do it earlier.
Exactly. And you talk to almost all the successful entrepreneurs, and there's one thing that in the first couple of years, you always want to, when you start a business, particularly whether it's financial or whether it's, on the more creative side, you're like, okay, I want to hedge my bets. What if? And then you start talking to people that are successful.
Yeah.
They didn't have a plan B.
Right.
It's like, no, this is your plan.
That's
A.
right.
You don't have a plan B. Do it.
We just talked about that last week with my veterinarian folks that were in here. Yeah. That's the exact same thing. If you go dip the toes in the water, no, it's cold. Like I'm out. This is safe over here.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah. No, you've got to just be, no, this is it. It's time to make a change.
Same with financing, right?
100%. You've just got to, it's got to feel right. It's got to be that right relationship. And that's what I tell people. Look, I think I can do some things to help you. You should work with a professional. You just should.
Yep.
Whether it's me or somebody else, work with a professional, but make sure that they can have good conversations with you, because when things get really tough, they got to be able to explain it to you in the right way.
There you go. And you got to have that confidence that they know what they're talking about.
And that's where that experience comes in. I don't think I could have done this as a young kid. But at the same point in time, I serve my clients in the community better being independent. And I know you guys do too. And you preach it all the time at News Talk, is because the people that make sure you have the pulse in the community are the folks that are in the station. right there.
Exactly. I mean, we all live. I was born and raised here, did the radio gypsy thing for a handful of years, but have been back here since 1988, born and raised and live here. I'm not going anywhere. Same with my business partner, Joe, born and raised here. And unfortunately, to go back, a recurring theme to corporate radio, well, all that money, all those resources, they go right out of town.
Right.
Where now with this, we live here. We know the market. We've programmed radio and, forever, it seems like, in this market, particularly in conservative talk radio. But at the end of the day, we're still going to be here.
Yeah. Well, and you're listeners to your own content.
Exactly.
Too, which makes a difference as well. Yeah. So now, do you think that the time frame with all this corporate stuff, I think it's not just the radio side of things, but I saw it in the corporate world as well, in the finance industry, consolidations, making it much more of a bigger type of a slice of a pie than, keeping it more niche, right? I think it's taken place in media in general as well.
Economies of scale, right? So if you need an entire staff to run a radio station or a financial service, whatever it is, well, if you add 2 or 3 more radio properties, you probably don't need to add a lot more people, right? Maybe some on-air people. And sadly, this is a whole different podcast, but sadly, that's not happening on the talent side. But anyway, the more you add, it's economies of scale.
Right.
But then what happens all of a sudden, which is, happened to media in general and radio specifically, is it's like, well, wait a minute. We own 5 in St. Louis and we own 5 in New York, and then why don't we just run them all as one radio station, get rid of everybody except just our corporate?
Yeah.
Boom.
You focus on numbers and not community.
Exactly.
Right. And that's tough.
Yeah. And I do a lot of radio consulting, and as I go across the country, and it used to be you'd go to specific markets and I'd have to spend 2 or 3 days just listening to all the different radio to formulate, it's kind of like you getting with, your clients. You want to know about them and everything they know and what they care about. Well, you'd have to do that. Well, now, if I go into a client station, it's like, who's in the market? iHeart, Odyssey. And I'm like, okay, I know what those two sound like. I don't need to listen to them.
Right.
That's how cookie cutter it has become.
That's right.
And part of it's out of necessity, and some of it's out of economies of scale.
Sure.
Make more money. And what has happened is, to bring this back to News Talk STL specifically, what has happened is the little local, mom and pop small business, they're priced out of radio.
Right.
And that's part of the reason that we put the radio station on. One is because we just knew, and I feel like we could do better content locally, local first, then national.
Sure.
But secondly, there are so many businesses that used to advertise on local radio, because I've been doing this, that can't anymore because they just can't afford it.
Right.
Where us as individuals, a standalone station, we can work with them and go, okay, obviously we have certain restrictions and things that, being FCC and all of that. But anyway, set that aside. Tell us a little bit about your company, what you want, and how much can you spend, and let's be a little bit more strategic,
because it's not that cookie cutter.
Exactly. It's not like, well, do you have $8,000 a month? Oh, you don't? Oh, well, see you later. Yeah.
No minimums kind of approach. Yeah.
Exactly.
I get it.
And we have small guys that have never done radio before. And then we have guys who have done radio forever that are like, oh, wow, this is different. This is cool.
Yeah.
All
right. Thank you so much, Jeff Allen, for coming in and spending some time talking to us about the radio business. News Talk STL, we're listening to it right now, and it is a great radio station. And the reason it's successful is because of that community feel, that family-like atmosphere. I have the privilege of seeing it each and every day. I have met many different show hosts along my time there, hung out and spent some time. And it's just really neat to see the different ways that they serve the community. obviously thinking about what's important from a news and political conversation context, but also taking it to that next level and making sure we understand what real journalism is, right? There's two sides to every story. Usually that third one is right down the middle, and that's kind of the one we need to think about. And most people are kind of that pretense, but we always have that passion of where we tend to lean. And that's what I love about the News Talk STL family. It is a wonderful organization built to try to be very specific, very niche focused, and also very non-corporate, right? That local community feel, that relationship feel is incredibly important. You can go in there and you can talk to the News Talk folks. And this is a common theme I see of successful business owners. You can't just dip your toes in the water. If you want to go do something, you got to go all in. You got to go in and you got to do it, because if your toe is just in, the people that you need to be engaged and involved are not going to be in a position to be successful. And that's something that all the business owners I talk to have in common. At some point in time, you got to make that leap. And I would not know where to start a radio station, but I do know I am very happy and confident in the relationship I have with the News Talk folks who've helped me record my show for the 53rd week now, which is really exciting. So that's our 1 year anniversary. Leave it to me to do it on a leap year where I have to all of a sudden come up with another week of content, right? But that's okay, because I enjoy doing it. And I have great people behind the scenes making sure it is going to be successful. And that's true of finances as well. You got to have somebody behind the scenes helping, making sure your goals, your objectives, your concerns are in that equation. You don't have to know how it all works perfectly, but you need to make sure you have somebody that's educated and able to explain it to you in a way that makes sense to you. Okay. This is a relationship business. Radio, relationship business. In fact, all the business owners I talk to, relationship business. When you get into that small community feel, there's ability to customize solutions to meet people's needs. There's a personal attention and creativeness that exists to serve clients' needs. It's a big deal. It's why I like to support small businesses. It's how I help small business owners. And really, when you retire, you are your own business. Your assets become your retirement plan. You got to figure out how to come up with an income stream. That's what's so exciting about what I do. I get to take the knowledge, experience, and expertise I have and apply it to individuals in need. And it is a wonderful thing. I enjoy it each and every day. And I hope you guys enjoyed this 53rd 1 year anniversary of Serenity Wealth Now Radio right here on News Talk STL. Tune in every Sunday, 9 a.m. and reach out if you have any questions at all, because ultimately we want to make sure everyone in our network and family has the ability to get the financial serenity you deserve.
Serenity Now! This is Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. Request a free copy of Chris's latest book, The New Holistic Retirement, by visiting SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.